On today's food adventure, we're gonna make something that I really like and enjoy, and it's rustic, homemade, delicious pizza. Are you ready for today's food adventure? Let's go. Well, hello. If you're new to my channel, we can thank the mysterious magic of the YouTube algorithm. Hey, speaking of which, it would really help me out if you haven't subscribed already to take a moment to click that subscribe button down below. It's totally free, it doesn't cost you a thing, and it really helps me out. By giving this video a huge like and thumbs up, it helps YouTube share this video and many other videos with awesome people like you from around the world. So welcome to my food adventure. Now, everyone is not going to necessarily agree with this recipe, but it works for me and this is what I like. So if you want to see how you can make some really cheap, delicious, easy rustic pizza at home, this is your video. I do 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 cups of bread flour. Now it's kind of all just eyeballed. I just throw it in, kind of like the Pioneer Woman, you know, I just throw it in there, kind of eyeball it. You don't really have to measure it to the T. And we do a teaspoon of sugar for the yeast to have something to eat. Nom 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 nom. So what you're gonna do is grab a package of this Fleischmann's. This is one of my favorites, rapid dry instant yeast. And all you do is add some water. Be sure it's about 110 degrees. Use a thermometer and usually just heat it up in the microwave real fast, but be sure you don't overheat the water because you're gonna kill these little guys because they're active, they're alive. Yippee! Now the key to this rustic recipe is that we're gonna minimize the use of the amount of dishes we're gonna have to use because we don't wanna clean that many dishes. So we're actually gonna rise the yeast and the flour in the container that we're gonna use it to mix it in our KitchenAid mixer. And the flour that we used earlier to measure out in the cup, we're just gonna add the yeast. Heat your water first, then add your yeast, but if you did what I did, just heat it up for like 20 seconds. So if you don't get all excited like I did and jump the gun, afterwards you'll have like a frothy, kind of milky sort of substance. That's the yeast and it's activating. See the bubbles? Okay, and before we move on, you actually want to set aside just a little bit of the flour for rolling purposes later for your rolling board. But while the yeast is still doing its thing and activating and bubbling up and smelling a whole lot like Cheerios, you want to add in a little bit of kosher salt in there. And I like to eyeball it, but it's equivalent to about 2 teaspoons there. And you want to add in some olive oil. I like to use the extra virgin olive oil. And about 2 tablespoons. Again, I'll eyeball it there if you like, but if you like to go a little heavy on that, a little heavy-handed, that's a-okay as well. So again, this is a super simple recipe for dough, and again, it's just the 2 different types of flours, a little bit of salt, sugar, olive oil, your yeast mixture, which is about another ½ cup of water mixed in there, and next we're just going to add in another full cup of water. And again, because this is sort of eyeballed, you can always add more water, and if you made it a little too watery, you can just add a little flour. Simple as that. Now here's the part where you're probably scratching your head because you're like, LJ, you have a mixer, why aren't you using it? Because believe it or not, you can actually do this by hand and build the gluten. The mixer definitely helps you out, and that's what we're gonna do next. But you can actually do this all by hand. You actually don't need a mixer, which is a really awesome part. Because for years, this is what I did before I got the mixer. That's just about gonna do it. So this dough ball here, it actually makes 2 large pizzas, about 16 inches in size. So after this rises, believe it or not, it'll double, maybe even more than double in its size. So with any types of doughs that have to rise, you usually want to put them in a warm, dry place so that they can do their thing for about an hour. But my little trick, I actually heat up the stove for literally just 2 or 3 minutes. And then I turn it off, and then I stick it in and crack the window and let it rise. And just so this doesn't stick, I want to add just a little bit of olive oil into the pan there. We want to minimize on our amount of dishes we actually have to clean. So we're gonna use this to have it rise. So coat that up really well with the olive oil because you don't want it sticking. And then you're just gonna cover it. Doesn't matter with what, plastic wrap foil, a towel. Okie doke, little friend, get in your little home here, take a little nap, and we'll see you grow right before our eyes. Now while the dough is rising, we're gonna prepare our marinara or our pizza sauce. And it's very simple ingredients. So we're gonna start with our can of peeled tomatoes, a little can of tomato paste, whole clove of garlic, some fresh basil, and you're not gonna use all the basil because this is a margarita style pizza, so we're actually gonna top it with more basil and tomatoes. And a little bit of salt and sugar. Oh, and of course, olive oil as well. And next is the super easy part. All we do is we add in our can of peeled tomatoes. And they come whole, so we probably want to cut them up and squish them up a little bit. And simply just do that with a knife. Add in our can of tomato paste. About a quarter cup of olive oil. Our chopped basil. Dash more salt, cracked pepper, and a teaspoon of sugar. We're gonna mix it together and simmer it for about half an hour. So this has been simmering for about 10 minutes now, and it sure is coming together nicely. And as the sauce continues to simmer there, I just realized that the oven has a bread-proof button, which I'm not going to use. I'm going to do it my old school way, but if you have a fancy one, you can definitely use that. I just didn't realize I had it. Alright, so it's been about an hour now, and we're going to take the dough ball out, and let's check on it. Wow, check that out. See, it's almost doubled in size, but it's not finished yet. What you got to do is take your aggressions out on it and punch a hole in there, take out some of the air. Lightly just fold it over itself. Don't want to really take out much of that air. You want to keep it in there for sure, as much as possible. Just fold it over itself, lightly knead it, shrunk a little bit, and we're going to stick it back in for about another 15 minutes to continue to rise. And then the trick after that is to pop it in the fridge for about half an hour. By popping it in the fridge, that kind of stops the yeast from doing its thing. And after that, you can either split it up and use half of it and save half for later, or cook it all at once. Would you take a look at that? Wow. Just take this vine-ripened tomato and some fresh basil, and that's our toppings.